Hey folks, Eric the Old Jarhead here. Well, here we go. This big guy was the second log up the tree, and it's even bigger than the last one I did. This is a big sucker right here. 20 feet long, even bigger than the last one. Took some work to get it to where we could get it up on the mill. You know, these logs are hard to move by hand, so we had to use the excavator to pull it down a little bit and get it into position, and then you see it knocked the mill around just getting it up on the deck. That's one of the things you're always dealing with is, getting these big logs on the deck. They're going to knock your mill around. It's just part of the game. And, milling logs like this, sometimes you got to go ahead and check your legs and things. Now, one thing you might notice right there is those side supports were down. That's so that I could push that log over the stops a little bit in order to get the full cut that I can get. I'm 28 inches between the rollers on one of these guys, but in order to get a wide cut like that, you have to actually push the log over to the side a little bit. So by lowering those side supports, you can kind of push the log over and just catch it a little bit lower on the log. Now you see there I wasn't quite that low. The cut between the stops on the bunk and the outer edge of the roller is only about 24 inches. So in order to cut wider than 24 inches, you got to push the log over to the side. And it's something you always got to be careful with, because if you lower your side supports too much, you could push the log all the way off the mill. And let me tell you, you don't want to do that. Some guys have asked occasionally about my blade tension. I keep it about 3,000 pounds, and you notice right there I backed off a little bit. And the reason for that is that, you're pouring the water on to keep the band cool, and it does cause more buildup on the band wheel belts. That'll increase the tension on the band, so it's not uncommon to see it start to really rise up. Now here what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning off those side supports. You get bark and stuff caught in them, so when you want to try to roll the log up into them, just like the bunks below, you got to make sure they're clean. Otherwise you won't be able to get the log rolled nice and tight against them. Now even though this is a really big log, you can see those side supports that are almost 12 inches high. They're barely catching the flat spot, but if you're really careful and you pay attention, you can get it so they're flat against them. And that way you're going to get a nice 90-degree cut. So we take a cap cut. This is a big log. I'm 6 feet tall. And when you see me standing there with that log up above my shoulders, that's something else. It's a big log, and it's tough to get even those cap cuts off. They're heavy. You can see these guys, they're really having to use their legs and pick this up, and 3 of them at a time to carry them. So big cap cuts, heavy. That was even not very thick, but that's all right. We're trying to whittle down, get to something usable. So after we do that cap cut, you're going to see that I go ahead, I cut a flitch cut. Notice that on the far end, that's where the big end of the log is. Now, they always say you should have the big end on the far end of the mill. They do seem to mill better that way. On really big stuff, I actually like it the other way if I can get it that way, just because there's so much trouble on the big logs trying to get the head past, and you might have to do some chainsaw whittling. I like to see that early on, and if I can clear at the beginning, I know I'm going to be able to clear all the way down on a big guy. Rolling these big logs, man, I'm telling you, it beats the mill up big time. You can see here I'm having to work the clamp out of the way, because even with the clamp backed off all the way, when you're milling a log this big, you actually have to lower the log clamp a little bit in order to get it out of the way, and then, man, it just bounces the mill around. I'll have to go in and check the outriggers occasionally, and here we lift it up with the rollers and swing out the other bunks. so that we've got a nice stable support, because these big 20 footers can flex on either end, so it's important to get those out. But you don't want to have them out when you're loading the log, because they will beat the deck and they can actually cause damage to the deck. So you always want to have them out of the way when you first start with a big log like this. Boy, look at that. That's tough to pull those off of there. They are heavy. Customer wanted a live edge for doing countertops or something, so that one's just going to be straight up live edge. But man, that's a heavy piece of wood right there. I bet that weighs 200 pounds. Get it rolled over. Gonna knock the mill around again. Yes, bounces it around. It's a good thing these mills are built tough. Made in America, American strong. Let's get to it. Get that cap cut off, and these are heavy. Look at this. Barely able to push it off the top with help. That's gotta hurt. I've carried those things. Oh my gosh, they're so heavy. I got a bad back, so I can't really do it anymore. And away we go. Take another flitch cut. I think I mentioned in a prior video, the customer wanted a lot of 1x stock too. So working down to a cant that we can use, you know, take some 1x's out just to kind of get it down. And you do a lot of rolling around, trying to get it down to a workable size. And sometimes that sawdust chute gets plugged up, and so you got to grab a stick or something and get the bark, whatever else is in the way there, and get it out so that your sawdust chute's working for you again. Just adjusting the tension on the band. It's a constant battle. Band heats up, gets loose. Pour the water on, sawdust builds up on the band belts. Let's push that off. Looks like somebody caught his fingers right there. Always hate to see that. It's tough. These guys are big. Your back's gonna feel it at the end of the day. Now we're gonna just move those over onto the side supports.
I heard myself thinking it, and I was like, what should I say? I was like, well, that's some big wood. There you go. That's his tagline.
Back at it. Get this thing milled down. Big log like this is going to take you over an hour to mill. I think this one, because I did a band change, it took me closer to an hour and a half. You'll notice I moved the debarker out of the way there. Sometimes, you know, you one end got bark in it. Hey there, always got an audience. I find, you know, you tend to get an audience when you're milling, and that's kind of cool. People love to watch what's going on. We'll put this one on the bunks too. We'll mill them down. Again, these are just flitches, trying to get down to a cant. We're going to get everything out of this log that we can. Now roll it over again. Working it down. Just checking my clearance on that far side. Try to keep it within a couple inches of the cant. Doesn't look like it, but it really is. And if you look at that, you'll notice I'm about 18 inches wide right there, and I'm over 18 inches deep. We're really getting into it. This is a big log. Now I'm just checking the pith, trying to make sure where it's at so I can see what I got to do. And I'm still working down to the cant. Thank God the wind was blowing in the opposite direction of me. Boy, it keeps that sawdust out of my face. I'm just gonna leave that one on there. We'll keep going. Now I kicked that one off. I cut that out. I kicked it off with the log clamp just to get it off onto the forks. We're getting down there now. Band change time. Someone tells me 2x12, there's always 4 joints or rafters, and so you want to put the stress in them vertical, not horizontal.
Don't end up with enough lumber tomorrow morning. I'm going to cut down another tree.
You're going to get a lot. Now I was talking about the vertical plane, meaning that when you stand these 2x12s up, you want them to crown. You don't want them to face bend, you know, so you can put your rafters in with a crown up. It makes them a little better. Back at it. You can see we've got 5 or 6 flitches on the forks. Just knocking them down. Now we're doing one after another, 2x12s. Why am I getting hot now? I sped it up a little bit for you. Now we're getting down. Now we're going to cut some flitches. Once you get the cant down to a smaller size, you know, 6 inches or so, I think that one was probably about 8. You know, you can put your flitches back up and you got something to clamp them against. And then you just start working them down. Take some off the top, get it to a nice flat surface, flip them over, and you know, if you can get them down around, I think you wanted 2x4s and 2x12s, so we want to, you know, get them flat, and then once they're flat on both sides, try to get at least 16 1/8 out of them so that you could take 4 inches off, and that'll give you a 2x4 full dimension on the top and a 2x12 full dimension on the bottom. Big, heavy stuff here. Heavy, big wood. Look at that fancy work right there, using the log clamp to knock things off while the customer's already carrying one away. You get really good at using your log clamp and, you know, to move things around like that. And, you know, it's just kind of one of those things. Get her done. Getting down there now. Talking to myself, I'm thinking about where that pith is and what I'm going to have to do to avoid it. I kind of planned it out pretty well, but I did have to take a little thin cut out of it just to get positioned just right. So, you know, when you're building your cant, you always want to kind of measure where that pith is so you can box that hard in, and that will mean that you either got a plan at the start of the cant, or you just got to know that near the end somewhere you're going to take out a thinner cut just so that you can avoid the cant and leave yourself with a 2x on the bottom. Just taking out a little 1/2 inch skim cut. So that's actually about 8.5 inch cant right there. You know, so that's big, 8.5 by 12, and it looks smaller in the video, but it's pretty big still. And there you have it, folks. Another monster 20-footer milled up. Got her done. Thanks for watching. As always, like and subscribe. And I appreciate everybody that's here and watching my channel. The old Jarhead out.